What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode number 42 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I welcomed a New Jersey native. He's an engineer, a producer. His name is Frank G. He's most heavily worked with Raekwon over the past, I think, 7 or 8 years, maybe even longer than that, on a lot of his music, mixing, producing. He's worked with ScHoolboy Q, Talib Kweli, many others, across a few different genres, mostly hip-hop, though, I'd say. I've been following Frank's work probably for the last 4 or 5 years on social media, and I just decided, he's a creative that I know. I'm going to reach out. So I reached out last summer, and we finally made it happen today. Frank gave a little bit of background on his Emmy Award that he won a few years back. It was actually a documentary that he did that ended up winning him that Emmy, which I found was pretty cool because, usually in music we talk about Grammys, but he's also a filmmaker, and he's actually working on another documentary that he talks about toward the end of the episode, so I'm looking forward to that. He also revealed some really cool news about Raekwon and Ghostface Killah working on another album, which I'm not going to reveal. You'll hear it in the episode, but that's pretty exciting news for a hip-hop head like myself, and I'm looking forward to that. And really just all that Frank has going for him. He's a very creative dude, and he was very chill to have a conversation with. So without further ado, let's get right into the episode. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 42 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today we have a really dope engineer, producer, all-around creative guy. He's out of New Jersey. His name is Frank G. How are you, man?
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm great.
Thanks for having me.
And like I said before, thanks for getting back with me about being on the episode and everything. It's always great to get someone that, I've never really had much conversation with. I know we've followed each other on social media, I think, for a bit and everything, and I've been following your work, so I'm interested to hear a little bit more about your story. So to start out, we kind of just have the guests give a little bit of background, maybe those who don't know you aren't familiar with your work. How did you get into music?
I started playing piano when I was about 6 years old. It was just like music, piano lessons, learning different instruments. So I've been involved in music since, my early childhood. As far as like playing music, I started playing in bands around like 17, 18 years old, and kind of, did some touring with them, and, had a musical background. And then after that, I got into production, mainly just producing hip hop and R&B, since 2010, I would say I started taking that like pretty much, or 2008, just production strictly. So engineering, videography, I started getting into more around that time. So I've been doing music my whole life, but production-wise, probably for about the last like 20 years, actually.
Super dope. So I know that, I think I read you own a studio. Is that correct? Do you have your own studio?
Yep. I have a studio called Creative World Media. It's in Summit, New Jersey. So nice. I do most of the production that I do is out of here, and mixing and stuff like that. So it's a cool spot. I've had it for about 2 or 3 years now.
Nice. So I'm curious to know, like, over the last year, obviously, there was a lot of things. People got shut down. They couldn't really record places. Have you kind of just kept your studio tight-knit? Have you still been working out of there? Have you been working out of home? Like, what's that been looking like?
Yeah, when the pandemic first hit, I took a lot of the stuff back home and just was using my home studio because it was kind of uncertain how things were going to play out. But as it progressed, it became clear that it was going to be more of a long-term thing. So I ended up moving my stuff back into the studio and just kind of kept it very tight circle, meaning just me for like a good 6 months of it. And, I just finally started kind of opening it up for production senses and recording and some engineering work that I've been doing that's been difficult to like not do with some of the artists in person. But taking precautions. But in general, I've kept it pretty closed for the last year and just started writing, a bunch more and just kind of getting into my zone, which has been nice, to kind of just focus on the creative element of it.
Have you been using like iRig or anything like that all these people are starting to use, where you can like do virtual sessions, or not?
Not really, man. Like at this point, I'm working on projects that I really want to work on. So I'm not really just kind of open house sourcing for like production gigs and recording and engineering stuff. I have some gigs lined up with people that if I need to meet up with them, I can, and if not, I don't really like. I don't know. It's tough to vibe out for me musically if I'm not in person on the right way. So if I can limit the digital interaction and just still kind of keep it like close friends and family kind of coming through and making some music right now, I'm fine with that for right now.
Yeah, I've heard so many mixed reviews because, like, I've heard that it's a cool, like, piece of tech and everything, and it's kind of, like, good if you can't be in person, but at the same time, you don't get to have the energy and the camaraderie that's, like, we can just sit down and just make this record from scratch. Like, we got to, like, there's a delay and there's latency, and, like, things might not be exactly the same with it, so I guess...
Yeah, I have a couple friends, though. I have a good friend, Mike, who's an upright bassist, a jazz player, and he's been doing a lot of kind of like gigs and jamming with people on some of those iRig type of things. And I do jump online with my partner that I do a lot of music with, especially for my sample packs. My buddy Rhodesart, he'll jump on some FaceTime things and we'll jam, but the latency issues, the not being in the studio, you know, it's kind of more work than necessary sometimes. So
it's interesting that, you know, it's going to become more of a thing. So hopefully they get some of those issues ironed out eventually. I think it's still in like the beginning phases of a lot of that stuff. So I think maybe like, I don't know, 7-8 years down the line, we might have like something that it can actually be utilized in a better way. But
yeah, I think way quicker than that, man. I would imagine, you know, by next year, if there's like, because like you were saying, this is going to be the trend for a little bit. You know, not everybody's going to be very comfortable like meeting up with people and doing things, depending on where you live, especially. So I'm hoping that they iron out those kinks, because it would be cool to, you know, like I miss being in the studio and kind of rocking out like that, so to speak. So you know, it's I guess the best that we can do in this situation. So
exactly. Now, I read on your Instagram that you won an Emmy, so I'm kind of interested about that story because I'm not really familiar with that whole background of how that happened. So can you kind of just go into like the story behind that?
Sure, yeah. So I won an Emmy for a documentary that I filmed called I Can't, I Have Rehearsal. I produced it and put it all together with the help of my friend Maddie Orton and also my buddy Phil Alonji, who actually got me the gig. So it basically highlighted 6 New Jersey high schools that were putting on their final senior play, basically, and they were all putting the same performance together. So, like, 6 different high schools and different kind of, like, socioeconomic backgrounds and different areas of the state were all putting on Mary Poppins. Disney had, like, just released the rights that year for schools to kind of, like, do the play. So we shadowed 6 high schools for the rehearsals, the behind-the-scenes stuff, you know, all of their competitions, and this kind of one culminating event called the Rising Star Awards. It's kind of like, I guess, the Oscars for high school musicals. So they all compete and do things. And one of the schools that we ended up filming ended up winning that. So it was just like a nice story to kind of compare all these schools, and regardless of like their situations and how, you know, they were they varied so much, they were all able to come together to put together the show. So it was a fluke that we won. Like, I definitely wasn't expecting to win because I don't know, you know, like who expects to win something like that? But my buddy who works for PBS was like, I think we should submit this for an Emmy because it's a really interesting story, and I think it, you know, it could turn some heads, and it ended up doing it. And yeah, it was a great experience. You know, the person who put it together, my friend Phil, has been my best friend for, you know, 20 or actually like 30 years. So like the fact that he won his first Emmy, he's been doing this a little while with me, was just really cool that we could like kind of do this together, you know.
That's super awesome because, like, I saw that was, like, in your, like, saved in your highlights and everything, and I'm like, oh, he won an Emmy. I was like, I have no idea, like, what that's all about. But that's kind of cool, and it's cool that, like, you kept that project in, like, the local area, like the New Jersey area.
Right,
so kind of, like, highlighted, like, the local communities and everything. So that's super awesome.
Yeah. That was my favorite part about it, like highlighting the local communities, getting to hang with these kids and, you know, see their artistic abilities while they're going to school and just everything that they're juggling. And just like, you know, it was kind of up my alley with the arts and education. So it definitely worked out. So I'm happy I got an opportunity to do that.
Is that like on the internet? Like, can I like search that and watch
Sure,
that?
Yeah. It's on PBS, but you can just search I Can't, I Have Rehearsal. And that's the documentary. But yeah, it's out there.
I'll look it up, man, because that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So back on the music side, you said, you know, 20 plus years now, you'd say you've been doing it. Who do you think when you came up was like the real inspiration that made you say, man, I want to really do music as a career?
Probably Jay Dilla. Jay Dilla was my favorite producer, like, growing up. I was really into Tribe Called Quest and, like, everything that was coming out of Cali, so everything that Dr. Dre was putting out, and everything that was coming out of New York at the time. I just felt like there were so many really cool producers, from RZA and Jay Dilla and DJ Premier, and just, like, Pete Rock, all these producers coming up, Easy Mo B. I was just always inspired by, like, the depth of their sound. It always sounded, like, difficult to do, in a sense, like, I was always wondering how Dilla got his basses to sound like the way they sounded without, like, distorting the speakers, and, like, just all these techniques, that helped kind of, like, guide me along the way. Plus, I was playing in bands, so we were mixing and recording our own, like, selves, essentially. So in the process of learning how to, like, produce and make music and listening to all these greats, I was also, like, learning about, the pocket, in a sense, of where every instrument should fit and how to leave room for certain things, and, like, frequencies, and just being in a band and having to collaborate and push out ideas and kind of know where you fit in. That was really inspirational as well. So, like, in tandem, I feel like just jamming with a lot of people, but definitely Jay Dilla was my first, like, musical, I guess, like, I stepped on the elevator when I listened to him, in a sense. I kind of went up a couple levels, and I was like, whoa, this hits differently than everything else I've been hearing,
Now, I know you've worked with Raekwon, you've worked with, like, Talib Kweli and a lot of other people. Is there anyone that you haven't got the chance to work with that is kind of on the bucket list?
I haven't got the chance to work with everybody, man. I mean, that's the I haven't gotten a chance to work with so many people. I would love to work with, like, oh my God, J. Cole. Obviously, I would love to work with him. I would love to do a track with Kendrick. I would love to do a track with Coda, the Friend. I don't know if you.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
Really into Coda.
Yeah.
Would love to do a track with Logic. Would love to do a track with so many people. Just so many people. I honestly can't even name them. There's just so many people I would like to do music with. Anderson .Paak. There's just so many.
Yeah, I think you're going along the line of a lot of the storytelling artists, like the people that really have, like, something to say in their music.
Yeah, that's my favorite stuff, man. I mean, like, I know there's a lot of different music out today, but I'm always kind of, regardless of what I think sounds good or not, MC wise, I'm still a purist in the sense of that I like to kind of get lost in a record and follow a story and kind of, like, feel like there was a lot of thought put into the lyrics. So those are definitely the type of artists that I would gravitate more to.
Yeah, that would all be really dope, honestly. Any of those, like, with your sound, I think would be crazy. So wish you luck on that. Hopefully one day some of those will come.
Yeah, one day, hopefully.
So as far as, like, a music career, what do you think is the best advice you've ever been given as far as how to approach doing music kind of as a living?
For me, some of the best advice was to always have other ways of making income, and that doesn't mean to take away from music in a sense, but, like, music is such a temperamental kind of field in a way. Sometimes people are recording, sometimes you're involved in projects, sometimes you're not, and there's these, like, weird, moments where you're not putting out as much creativity that you would like to, whether it's life or, other things. So I think just doing videography as, like, another side hustle, engineering, production, doing these sample packs. I'm also a 7th grade biology teacher. So this is my 17th year teaching. So I've been always balancing kind of like a professional, quote unquote, career with doing my artistic ventures. So I think the ability to multitask and have the things that you're good at make money for you. Sometimes you have to think a little bit more out of the box. I would love to just sit in here and focus on music and get into a project, but I'm also pretty good at engineering and I like doing it. So I could, do those services for other people also, and videography, like I was saying, and just all these other things that I kind of have my hands in right now.
That's so important, because I feel like sometimes we forget that in music we have to be entrepreneurs as well. So like you just said, multiple forms of income is always something you want to go after, and just find different
Right.
avenues to have income. So if one thing is kind of in a dry spell, you still have money coming in from the other thing. You know what I mean? And you just
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And like you would do that, like you're saying. I think that kind of is another piece of advice that I would give a lot of people is that like you need to think about it as a business if you're trying to make money from it, right? So if you're not trying to make money from it, like you can make all the songs that you want and you know everything is great, but if you are trying to make money, you have to analyze it, which I think a lot of artists, because it's a creative realm to be a producer and a musician and a MC or like anything, you're kind of chasing this dream, and you can get lost in that. So if you're not pulling it in sometimes and saying, okay, if I was running a restaurant, would I just be out here not thinking about other ways to get the things I need for my restaurant? No, I might go paint a house, you know, for that extra side cash to do something to benefit my dream of a restaurant and do all these other things and make the menus look cooler and invest in this and put more marketing time into it. I mean, it's the same thing. Could you sit back and like the magic claw, as you know, I always refer to it, like come down out of the vending machine and kind of like grab you and take you to that next level without you having to put a ton of work into it? Sure, but that seems like a really weird lottery to bank, you know, your success on, you know, this kind of magical thing to happen to you and just kind of take you where you need to go. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And like I was saying, this deep into, you know, my career, I'm still, you know, stressed in a sense that I didn't work with certain people, or you know, like this beat I feel like could be better, or you know, like I'm super critical with the things that I do. So I think I've never kind of gotten too far ahead of myself to say, oh, you know, like this is great and we're doing it. Like there's always something more that can be done. There's always somebody I could learn from. There's always something more I could be doing for my business. You know, I think it's that drive to like never feel complacent about where you are, because there's just like so many things to do, especially if you're a real creative. Like I feel like creatives should feel frustrated majority of the time, you know, because like it's not easy to stay inspired in today's world especially, but to stay inspired in general, you know.
That to me is how you identify like if it's really what you're passionate about too, because if you're really not passionate about it, I think you're just going to give up and be like, well, it's too hard and this is taking too long, and you're going to become impatient. If you really have the patience for it and the real drive for it, you're just going to keep going no matter what, and you're going to stay present and just stay working, you know what I mean, like you just said. So
Exactly. I mean, there are years that I've made no money when I was starting out, and it wasn't I wasn't ever like, oh, I should be making more. I just knew it would maybe come one day, and I just had to keep my head down and getting better and better at my craft, because it's like legitimately the only thing I can control is how good I am, and how prepared I am, you know?
Yeah. So, and sometimes I think people have that, like, early on in their life, they kind of have that wisdom, but then sometimes for others it's a learning curve, so to each their own, honestly.
For sure. Absolutely.
So is there anything, maybe in recent years or even at the beginning of your career, that you say you struggle with as far as time management, as far as, you know, you have to have studio time, you have to have personal time, all kinds of, you know, different things going on in the day. Has there ever been a struggle for you, especially lately with a lot of changes in the world?
Yeah, I think time management is always a struggle. You know, that's the ultimate struggle. How do you pack the most productivity into 24 hours in a day, you know? And it has been, because I think everybody's routine has been messed up over the course of this last year especially, and their normal kind of grind has switched, you know, and they may have to make time for things that they normally wouldn't make time for, or you know, have less time for the things that they like to do, you know, because of just the way everything is going right now. But yeah, I've always, I mean, struggled in the sense that I always know it's a puzzle that I have to figure out. So yeah, I feel like I'm always constantly struggling with the time management, because I want to be good at everything that I'm doing. You know, I don't want to be the weak link. So yeah, it's definitely always been a focus, you know, to be productive, and time management is super key for that.
So what advice would you give to someone who is looks at you and they say, you know, you've done a lot, you've been an engineer, you've been a producer for a while, you've worked with a lot of people. What advice would you give to someone who's looking up to you that would want to be where you're at now?
I think focusing on your craft. I know all of these things sound like cliche, but there is no like answer to like being where anybody is, in a sense. Like, I've been given some opportunities, and some of the things that I've been given weren't based on any strategy I had. I wasn't like emailing people. It was like word of mouth and relationships, and just, I guess, when you're in a room with other creatives, knowing how to be collaborative and but still, be guarded about your creativity and know that you're worth something in the process. You don't need to be taken advantage of. So I think if you're a creative coming up now, I think it's really important to really be good at music, number one, like as far as instruments and knowing how to produce and engineering your own stuff. But I would be also, telling like up and coming any creative to focus on, just staying true to their craft and being a person that people want to keep collaborating with, as far as just a personality, and making sure that you protect yourself in the sense of copywriting things and, getting things registered on BMI and ASCAP when they go out, and having people look over contracts or having people write up contracts, and kind of having that business mentality from the start. As much as that feels awkward sometimes, I think if you don't have a manager, and not everybody is fortunate to have like a team. Like, I don't have a manager. I have to be that guy sometimes. I have to step out of my creative zone and also know that this comes with a business element of it. And you are your only advocate. Nobody cares about your stuff more than you're going to care about it. So, don't find shame in standing up for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And that all goes back to what we were talking about before, is just that all takes time. You can't learn all that in a day. You have to learn that over years and years and years and years.
Absolutely. And it took me talking and seeing other people act like that in those situations to know that, this is something that speaks to me, Again, there's so many routes to where people want to go. Like you can, quote unquote, become famous for doing some really silly things. You can be famous for doing some dumb stuff on YouTube and putting a video out about it. You know what I'm saying? It depends on what type of fame you kind of really want. If you're looking to be taken seriously as like a music person, that's a different route than, just becoming popular. That's I want to know when I walk into a room that my music would make somebody like Black Thought want to jump on it and, kill it. Those are the types of motivations that I have going into it, So music first is the focus.
Mm-hmm. And I always think with the overnight success thing, it's like you can get that quick, but can you maintain that?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you want to. Yeah, it depends on what story you want. There are people that are fine with being really famous and then like kind of fading off and just having this notoriety. That's never really been like appealing to me, especially with some of the people that I look up to. It just always seems very, very fleeting, very, very quick. And it's just not something. And I know I'm going to be doing music regardless if I'm making tons of money or I'm making $0. Music is always going to be a part. So, I might as well enjoy that aspect of it the most,
Yeah. So if you could go back 10 years ago, Frank, maybe give yourself advice, maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you'd do?
I think it's key to know when you're wasting time, and that I think is a personal barometer for everybody. So if it's tough because I look back on certain instances where I felt like I put too much effort into certain projects and put too much effort into certain individuals and put too much effort into certain opportunities for the hopes of it going a particular way and not kind of reading some of the red flags. And what I mean by red flags is, as a producer, if there's any producers working out there, you inevitably have to work with a bunch of artists, to kind of get your music out there, unless you're just putting out instrumentals, and, that's cool too, which is nice because sometimes, you want to just have your own stuff out there. But as far as working with other artists, I think as a producer, you have to know when to, or how much of yourself to kind of give to certain projects, right? Because of that time management phase. And I know, not to say that I've wasted a lot of time with certain like artists, but I think in retrospect, I could have put more time into, again, more personal projects than like just looking at an opportunity. So I think just working with the stuff that speaks and trusting your gut instinct, and again, able to recognize some of the red flags with people if you're collaborating, it has been a real helpful key that I've learned later on, kind of in life.
Mm-hmm. So 10 years from now, where do you see yourself? Where do you think you want to be in your career or in your life in general?
I definitely want to have a song with J. Cole, so hopefully we'll revisit that. I definitely want to have a song with Kendrick, and if there's ever an opportunity to get in the studio, obviously with Jay-Z on any level, it'd be mind-blowing. So if that doesn't happen in 10 years, as far as music and my company, I'm hoping that my company CW Sounds, with the sample packs that we've been making, kind of, just continues to grow. I'm hoping that the videography I'm doing as far as documentaries and other filming things that I'm doing, blossom and get noticed by some cool people. I'm hoping that the music and the studio that I have continues to grow. Just growth. I think for the next 10 years, I'd like to say I'd be, still in New Jersey with a nicer studio and a bigger catalog.
So more on the short term, in the coming months, maybe the next year, what can you reveal that we can expect from you, maybe in film or music or anything?
Yeah, so we've been working, Raekwon, Ghostface, my buddy Rosart, and I have been in the studio working on Cuban Links 3 right now, so that's been pretty cool, putting together the third part of that trilogy, the Cuban Links series for Raekwon. And Ghostface is also working on his Supreme Clientele 2 album, so we've been doing some stuff for that. Capadonna and myself and my man Rosart just placed a song with Capadonna on his next album, so that'll be cool to have a Cap verse. And I'm working with a couple of different artists. I just put out an album with this girl, Felicia George, who was actually one of my former students like 10 years ago. And she is putting out some new music, so, looking forward to that. Working with this other kid called Chris Patrick from New Jersey, who's a really good artist. Looking forward to the music I'm putting out with him. And dropping some new sample packs on CW Sounds. And I've been filming a documentary. I haven't come up with a title for it, and really I haven't come up with like the storyline yet for it, but it's following a youth orchestra that's based out of Princeton and Trenton in New Jersey, and kind of following them around. Some really talented kids, and they're doing some incredible things in their community also. And yeah, just some, other random projects. Just be in the studio writing a lot of music.
Super awesome. And I know the hip-hop heads are going to love that Raekwon Ghostface news.
Yeah.
They're going to go crazy.
I know. It's been a long time coming, so I'm happy. We had started working on it right before the pandemic. We had met up with Raekwon and started discussing some of the tracks that are going on it, and then March came and everything kind of went downhill, and it was really difficult to link up with each other. But as of a few weeks ago, we've been back in the studio working on the tracks for that, so I'm excited.
Awesome. And we're all looking forward to that. So do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners today?
I just continue to stay safe out there right now. I think the main point is just getting through this wacky year and, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and, hoping that everything goes back to normal. But yeah, no real words of wisdom aside from, I think just find ways in life to keep you inspired. It's like the whole point of this is to be inspired by the art that you put out. And if it doesn't feel like that, it's time to kind of reevaluate your creativity.
Absolutely, man. Well, Frank, that's all I have for you today, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you getting back with me, man. Hopefully we can do this again soon. I don't know, maybe in person when this whole thing kind of blows over. We'll have to see.
Absolutely. I would love to, man. And congrats on the stuff that you've been putting out. I saw you had just released some new music too, right? Yeah. That Me and You joint was pretty dope. So congrats on everything you guys have coming out on your end.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It means a lot coming from you. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Thanks, guys, for listening today. That was episode number 42. We'll be back this time next week. If you want to support, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform to send any funds. And we'll see you then. Thank you very much.